Welcome to Lights in the Night with your host, Russell Johnson. Uncover the truth about alien contact and hear from insiders who reveal the evidence. Stay tuned.
Good evening. Thank you very much for tuning in to Lights in the Night. I'm Russ Johnson, and we have a lot of people here that are talking about we're going to do basic one-on-one UFO stuff. I mean, it's all over the television, all over the news. It's really going to explode, if you will, across the planet. But I think we want to talk about abductions today. For those people who have been abducted, or seen abductions, or know about abductions, we want to talk about that. So that people who have, there's an estimate, they say 8 million people in the United States alone have been abducted. And so let's talk about that. And we have Zena, Sally Bernard. She's been with us. She has her own show. She's going to talk about that in a minute. We have Wally. He's a producer, television executive. He's been around the industry a long time. Wally, thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me on the show, Russ.
And then, of course, we have the executive producer of this program.
And if people want to call in and tell their show, what's the number?
Certainly, at 888-994-4995.
You got a couple of people calling in.
Right, okay, good. Let's talk about abductions. That's basic of all the information you know. What would you tell people about abductions?
Well, I've never experienced an abduction before, but I know some people who have. And the funny thing is, people think these people are out of their mind when they go through an experience like this. But I was reading something one time, and it's like one of the national parks. There are like over 800 abductions there on an annual basis, that people just go missing. Children are seen one place and found in another side of a place like that. So I believe that it's common. I can't personally speak on that because I've never experienced it, not that I know of. But I do believe that there is contact out there with these extraterrestrials.
Mm-hmm. Have you seen any motion pictures that reference that? We talking about the fourth kind. Have you seen the fourth kind?
I saw the fourth kind. It was pretty scary, to be honest with you.
Well, it happened in Nome, Alaska. It's a true story, though.
Yeah, that's what I heard, yeah.
Right. How about Taken?
Taken? Is that,
A
yes.
13-hour miniseries.
Oh, I saw one of the episodes that you told me about, and it was mind-blowing when I saw that episode. But I don't have a DVD player, so I have to get the DVD player so I could order the 13-hour set. But you have that. Maybe you can let me borrow it.
I think mine is still on the wraps. So let's talk about, what do you know about this whole alien fiasco that's coming to planet
What I know
Earth?
is I can't go by what anyone says. I can go by my own experience.
Okay.
And have had many encounters with this over the years since I was a child.
Uh-huh.
And it's a funny thing, when you're a child, you don't think anything of these things. You just think, oh, that's cool.
Okay.
Where there's communication with different entities or beings out there. And I didn't know as a child. I was like, oh, this is whatever it is, you know. And in fact, it was probably started at, and I obviously, I don't know, I believe in angelic beings as well, celestial and terrestrial beings. And I realized when I was doing a process at a seminar, I had an angel with me when I was a kid.
What age?
Protected me from probably since 2 or 3 years old. I remember having experiences when I was a kid in A&P in New Jersey. I'd be walking through the store, 3 years old by myself. You couldn't do that now. And there was someone who told me, go talk to the lady over there. I remember it clearly. And tell him you're looking for your mom. And so I said, okay. I said, hi, my name's Wally. Wally, I'm looking for my mother. Her name is so-and-so.
Uh-huh.
And so I did that. Then I realized there were near-death experiences that I've had in my life that someone was always there. I fell through the ice in a brook in my home in New Jersey. Someone pulled me out of there. I remember it very clearly. There was a time when I almost drowned in Miami Beach. I was saved from that and spared. And I believe that there's certain people that are beings in this planet. We have certain type of protection around us. I didn't know what it was at the time. But I was telling you that I used to remote view at 2 years old. I didn't know there was no term for it back then, but they used to call me the finder. 2 years old, I'm a kid, and my mom and dad, where are mommy's keys? I would see it in my head, where it's at, and I would go and grab it. I can barely walk. I'm 2 years old. And it was so much so I gained the nickname the finder because I would always see these things. And To me, I grew up thinking this type of gifts were normal. I thought everyone had the same type of abilities. And I'll never forget this when I had that rude awakening as a teenager, that people did not get it. People were afraid. They were scared. And to me, it's just been a part of my life. And of course, I grew older. It got to the point where there's so many serendipities and coincidences that are collaborated. I knew I was not. I've always felt like I wasn't of this earth. I'm just being honest. I'm not saying I'm an alien, but even the scripture, which I study, it tells this is not our final resting place. We're pilgrims in this place. And a lot of people interpret that as being heaven. But we see what they say is we started somewhere else and came to this earth. So I believe there's truth in that. I don't know the theology. I know about it, but other than that, I really don't know that much. But I've seen ships many times. First time I saw one with other people, we were about 15 years old. They were on Miami Beach, and it was me and my brother and a couple other friends and my older brother, and we saw it together. We saw two lights that came up, met, split off in different directions fast, and we actually were able to call them back. And my brother has had many other encounters other than that. He's the type of guy who always sees something in the sky. To me, when I look, I see things, but I try to keep myself grounded and focused on this earth.
Okay, well, great. So we had a call coming in.
That's fascinating. I got about 3 questions.
I got a couple of questions. Let's take the call.
Let's get the caller, please.
Hi. Hello.
Hello?
Hey, Russ.
You're on the air. Who do we have?
Hey, Russ. This is Norman. I just spoke to you a bit ago.
Okay, great. Thank you for calling in. Norman, listen, what experiences do you have in terms of research, number one? 2, experiences, personal experience, abductions. Can you give us any feedback or indications of what you know about all of this?
Yes, Russ. I was contacted by the Pleiadian Galactic Federation of Light 35 years ago. I worked for a short time with a publishing company that the Pleiadians had set up. And the contact with the Pleiadians and the information that they published and shared with me really changed my life profoundly. Some years later, I began a career working in digital media and business development. Eventually, I was guided again to begin working with them and launched a podcast with a couple friends in 2019. That lasted a few years, but most recently, I rebooted that effort as a solo project because I really felt like I need to get back and connect with those roots from that original contact. My latest endeavor is karmicscrolls.com, where I focus on connecting people with the Galactic Federation, the Pleiadians, and Ascended Masters. And karmicscrolls.com is a portal for karmic mastery, cosmic balance, and sacred wisdom, which is really the most important takeaway from my experience with the Pleiadians.
Wow, you said a mouthful. You Galactic Command, the Pleiadians. How long have you been in touch with all the constructs, these concepts about alien abduction and the Pleiades?
Yeah, I started as a kid seeing things in the sky and being interested in, Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, UFOs, aliens, kind of just like typical young people, sci-fi and stuff like that. But as I got a little bit older, it really increased. And when I was in college, I ran across a book called Commander X, which was about Hangar 18 and Roswell and some other stuff like that. Got me kind of back into it, maybe about 18 or 19 years old. And as soon as I got sort of dug into it, at that time, my parents were living in Las Vegas and were getting a lot of information about Bob Lazar and Area 51. And they were sharing that with me. They'd actually mail me VHS tapes in the mail of George Knapp, who's still famous now, talking about Bob Lazar and Area 51. So that got me back into it. And then the Pleiadians came to me directly through one of their ambassadors or somebody that's working for them in the publishing, and connected with me, and then asked me to participate with them in what they were doing for a couple of years, actually. And that was really just when it took off. That's when it became something much bigger than what it was before.
So you're really into it. I mean, really, I'm doing a lot of research, huh?
This is 40 years for me. I'm
well,
not
that's
a
great.
young guy.
Let me ask you a question then.
It's been more than 2/3 of my life.
How many different alien species do you know about? You're talking about the Pleiadians, you got Greys, you got the reptilians, you got the Nords, tall whites, etc. Talk about that.
Yeah, so the Galactic Federation of Light is a federation of enlightened races, which includes the Pleiadians, the Arcturians, beings from Betelgeuse, beings from Sirius, Aldebaran, Andromeda. It's not just one planet, it's really star systems and galaxies and whatnot. So the Galactic Federation of Light is a known thing it's been around for a long time, and it's kind of like Starfleet. So it's very similar to kind of Starfleet is a variety of different races that come together that are working together on the same goals. And so popular, of course, are Pleiadians, but also Lyrans and also the Arcturians. So these are some of the most popular and talked about Galactic Federation races.
For people who are new to the subject matter, because this is basic one-on-one, I call it, what kind of homework would you have people to do? What information, websites, what other kind of places would they go to talk about the hybrids and all of that? What would you suggest?
So you can definitely go to my website, first and foremost, to karmicscrolls.com. Even though it's about karma and karmic mastery, I have a huge section on authors like Dolores Cannon and Tatiana Mishakina and Barbara Marciniak. For me, it was Barbara Marciniak. That was where I started. She has a book called Bringers of the Dawn, which was one of the most important books for me to understand Pleiadians. And really, what we're looking at is the difference between Zeta Reticulans, the little grays, the Draconians or the reptilians, and then the human species. And so sometimes called the Nordics, but I think that's kind of a misnomer because that implies that they're just a bunch of white people. But essentially, the human races are the races that were here originally at the time of Atlantis and left when that civilization collapsed and went out to other star systems like the Pleiades, colonized those or recolonized those, and now have come back to us. So in a sense, they aren't really extraterrestrials like we'd think of Zeta Reticulans. They're really our ancestors.
Right, okay, good. Wally, you have any questions of Norman? I mean, Norman seems he does a lot of homework. That's obviously. I say he does, Norman. I said he does a lot of homework, obviously. He does a lot of research. Any questions of him?
Yeah, no,
Any comments?
Because for people who out there don't know anything, 101 is like basic. So a lot of people don't know the terms of Pleiadians or Arcturians or anything like that, but it's coming up in a lot of social media lately. And honestly, before, I had no training in any of this stuff before. Spiritually, with extraterrestrials, whatever you're going to call them, or ships, it was just, and like you, that's funny you mentioned, I was the same kid into the Loch Ness Monster. It was naturally ingrained in me. Bigfoot and all those same types of experiences. In fact, there was a show that was on in the 70s with Leonard Nimoy. It was called In Search Of. And on that show, they dealt with a lot of different things. So what would you tell someone on the basic level, someone who's never heard this before and is just being opened up, they're just being awakened? What would you say?
I think you're absolutely right. There's a lot of exposure of these concepts that I'm talking about on social media, places like Instagram and Facebook and other websites. I would say Google Pleiadians, Google Galactic Federation of Light. Start there. You'll find so much information. I did mention Barbara Marciniak, her book, Bringers of the Dawn, and Family of Light is another one of her books. These are great books, and there's just a quick search on Google on Pleiadians or Galactic Federation will really give you kind of a different, fresher perspective that doesn't ignore or deny the existence of other races like the Greys or the Reptilians, but is really to look at what is the human heritage in the cosmos and what can we learn from these beings, because they really are here to teach us.
Okay, we have also Xena with us. She's got her own program, and she's been abducted, and she's traveled all over, out of body, the whole 9 yards.
I find this so fascinating, Russ, because I'm sitting here after my show, and basically the show today was not necessarily on abductions, but every one of my shows has this type of theme.
Sure.
But I don't know if you have any viewers that were watching my show before this on Call Me Xena, but it's wonderful. It's so comforting, actually, in a way, to hear other people. You've heard my story, I've heard yours, but I just met you and the gentleman on the phone here. We all have so much in common. I see that today. I've been abducted, and I have a book out there, actually, about my abductions. I really just thought I was, if the people know what astral projection is, that's what I thought I was doing. But I had both. I had abductions too. You mentioned remote viewing, which I'm very familiar with.
How would a person know whether he or she has been abducted?
Well-
what indications do you
We
have?
will get messages and proof. I got mine mainly starting off with is in dreams. And my first dream, if people probably don't know my story, was to go and get some paints and start to draw, and crayons, which a lot of my paintings are in here. But what I was doing, and they came to me because I was probably very stubborn and not wanting to believe this later in life, they told me to draw. So I'm drawing, and I was lucky enough to have somebody, without going into my story, come into my life. But I'm drawing things from centuries ago.
Yeah, but
I'm-
what-
so, sorry.
What will you tell new people
Well,
to do?
that's what I was going to say.
Oh.
Look out for these signs that we get. We will get, on my particular story, and I'm not going to go into the whole thing, I was getting many messages. And I do believe, especially if we're ready, we will look into that. If we get something, we have a dream that seems strange. You're flying. I didn't know what that was, but I knew I was flying. So my message is to just look and take note of what your messages that are going on. You may think you're imagining it, and that's okay.
Okay.
But you're
Molly,
opening your mind.
What would you say? What would you tell new people who have not been immersed in this at all about abductions? What would you say to them?
Well, to me, like I said, I haven't experienced any abduction that I know of. But what I would say is this, is that a lot of people have strange things happen in their life. And I'm the guy with a million coincidences. I can tell you that. So an abduction, I can't really speak as an authority on it. But what I can tell you is that we have to realize we're spiritual beings. Every text in the world talks about that. And spirit, the word meaning pneuma, is translated into energy. And I did go to theological seminary, so I know the Greek, Aramaic, and Hebrew, so I can explain everything, because I want to learn more. And what I realized is that all the things were happening all my life when I started reading the scriptures. Everything was in there. I didn't know anything about that. All I knew is I was different. Strange things would happen around me. I get intuitive vibes from people. I could tell them about their entire life. And I was talking to her earlier. I don't believe in the word psychic. It has such a negative connotation to it because, and some people would say that about me, but those who have known me really close and around me, they see these things happen all the time. So what I would tell people, if you're seeking, start with yourself. Start to seek internally, because I believe we're energy and we're all connected. So for me, you start off with something as simple as a meditation. And I found myself, when I'm able to still my mind and quiet my mind, I open myself up to what I call the receiving mode. And once I found out, because listen, you know what it's like to walk around your whole entire life thinking you're different than everyone else? First you think everyone is the same. Then you realize, wait, I'm not the same as everyone here. But then when you find that collective, I remember that I first connected with a tribe, and I felt like, man, these people get me, and they understand me. So I'm saying, if you're out there right now, you're thinking you're all alone, you have these strange things happening in your life, you have no one to talk to, if you continue to walk through this path, these people will be revealed to you. And you're going to serendipitously meet people, and you go, wait a minute. Like, he's one of them right here I met serendipitously. Norman's another one. There's several other people I've met along my journey where they didn't come through a conventional method talking about spirituality, UFOs, or things like that. But I believe we're all connected. Even those who still have the veils over their eyes, I have a prayer that I would say all the time: open my eyes and I see, and open my ears that I may hear. Because if you believe that this is all we have right here, there's things right now you can't see with your naked eye.
Yeah.
Okay? And if energy is translated. So to me, I've been studying, now since I figured out, I have been studying, been to several workshops and finding people like the Essence of Being. And to me, Mastery Systems would teach you about quantum physics and quantum mechanics. And my buddy told me about the Monroe Institute, which is next on my bucket list to go to, because they can take it. I don't know, that came out of the CIA disclosure, by the way. There was a guy named Monroe, and what happened was he figured out a way in a system that he could teach the average Joe who was not spiritual how to remote view.
Yeah. Well, there's Ingle Swan, there's Hal Puthoff,
Yeah.
there's Russell Tarr. I mean, all these guys.
Yes.
And even Axelrod, too. He's a major one in terms of that. It's a science that the government put together in the 1960s.
Yes.
And those guys were, and all the work they did, they were 99.9% correct. So the names that we're talking about, Russell Tarr, Hal Puthoff, Ingle Swan, and Axelrod, very important. Freddie, what do you think about all of this?
I got to tell you, I am a newbie.
Right.
Even
Well,
though
but
I've known you forever,
Right.
I'm a newbie, and to listen to the conversations happening, I wanted to ask the panel, has anything recently, because of what's going on since January, it looks like everything is ticked up and
Oh, yeah.
everybody is now
Yeah.
more willing to talk about it. Has anything recently happened to any of you?
Well, we have be on the show. we have to. For many of us who have been around a long time talking about this, you know, like you say, 10 years ago we were doing a show about that, and we kind of backed off and waiting for what we call the real disclosure. 2024 is the real disclosure. And it's going to, from now on, it's going to expand all across the four corners of the world. So,
Well, yeah, I had a situation which they know in the cafe about
Go
3
ahead.
weeks ago.
All right.
I was calling out in my sleep. My husband was in the other room. It was about 12:30 at night, and I'm calling help. And this was the only bad. I can't say bad because I didn't follow through with it, but I'm going help me, which I've never done before. But I'm talking in my sleep, but I was very aware where I was. He came in to see if I was all right, and he woke me in the middle of it. But I was completely paralyzed, which I told you, and I couldn't talk. But he'd never seen. I've only been married a little while, so he'd never actually seen that. But for me, it wasn't proof for me because I've had many, many experiences, but I've never been woken up in the middle of one, as far as I know.
one of the things I like
So-
to say is that when people are abducted, they are taken through windows, they're taken through doors, they're taken through ceilings, they take, no matter what.
But we are paralyzed. That was I couldn't get the words out until about 2 minutes later.
That happened to her the next day,
Yeah,
it
that's
happened
why
to
I
me
had
too.
to say this.
So
which is really
Same thing.
weird.
that's because
Within a day of each
you're
other.
in her company, so she's sharing.
I don't know. We need to really
It's
talk.
never happened to me,
And it
but
never
it happened to me the next
And we
day.
both had someone
Sharing
witness
the
it.
story, looking at each other like, did we just share the same story?
Well, I told daughter. She said you must speak to Freddie.
Well, there's got to be some other people out there who have gone through similar experiences. And if you do, give us a call, 888-994-4995. And we'll take your call and we'll try to answer your questions because you have some people with experience about abductions and what's going on out there. Plus, a book that I just finished with Dr. John Mack, he'll tell you about, has a whole chapter about abductions and what people go through. And it's very interesting without saying any more about that. Any questions about that?
And I don't know. Wally, have you had anything recent happen?
I can tell you every day something happens. And I say every day, I mean literally every day, because I spend a lot of time in meditation, contemplation, conscious creation. And it could be anything from an experience, a feeling, lucid dreams. I've been having these dreams where I'm absolutely in another place. And I've always had that the frequency of those dreams has been increasing every single day. The other thing is, there was a couple Mondays ago, and I'll tell you this, I felt blocked, like crazy ass bleep is happening to me, and I can't explain it. And talked to some other people who are spiritual, and they felt the same thing. It was 2 Mondays ago, and literally there was blocks, and I can't, to this day, I can't explain what's happened, but I had to quiet myself and realize that whatever it is, there's no coincidence happening to other people. And I'm not the one who's in the cosmic and the stars and astrology like that. I just know that there was something off. And so it was trying to get my attention and to show me that everything is where I heard everything is working out for me. This is happening for a reason because we're getting you prepared for something. And I believe a lot of people, if you don't know your vision or your mission in life, it has everything to do with it.
Yeah.
It's not just like we're some woo-woo people out here talking. This is reality. This is science-based. And we all experience certain things, but we're just blind to it at the time.
Let me ask Norman. You have 1 minute. Norman, take the next minute and explain to new people what they should be looking for and where can they go to get more information. Are you there?
Wally, your expression of your situation with lucid dreams and vivid dreams and having either a blockage or release of energy, what I recommend to people is to be more introspective. Wally mentioned prayer and meditation, contemplation, really going inward. I think it's the most important thing that we can do right now because our inner voice is drowned out by social media, by the chatter, by the noise, the static, politics, and all the rest. Our inner voice has so much to teach us about who we are and what we should be doing with our lives. people are probably right now, just like me, experiencing vivid dreams, lucid dreaming, visions, getting what I call downloads. Some people call downloads, or
Yes.
intuition or intuitive information. I went through a creative block a couple months ago where I was trying to work on some new projects, but just nothing was going.
We
And
got
now the
about-
flow is incredible.
Norman, we got
What's
about
happened
10 seconds
recently
on
is
you.
Massive burst of creative energy.
Okay, Norman, I appreciate you being on. We have got to wrap up now. We're about the end of the program. Wally, thank you very much. Zena,
We got to do
thank
a
you very
part
much.
2 to this, Russ.
Part 2, yeah, we got to come to part 2. So next week is part 2. Okay, Freddie, thank God. And I thank everybody for listening to Lights in the Night. Tell your friends about it, and we'll see you this time. Same place, same station, next week this time.
Thank you for joining us on Lights in the Night. Keep your eyes on the skies and stay curious. Until next time, good night.